Hello world. Do you know over the last few days in this country there has been over about 1.2 million in seizures of drugs and cash? And do you know how much difference it made to the war on drugs and to society in general in Ireland? About that much. In fact, if you can get less than that, that's how much difference it made. And I tell you why. If you owned a clothes shop, you'd have to make allowances for every year someone's going to come in and rob a pair of jeans or a top or a pair of runners, whatever. So you make allowances for that. So the people at the top, listen, whether you like it or not, drugs is the biggest business globally that has ever been, and just maybe ever will be for the foreseeable future anyway. It's global. There's no stopping it. So when the people at the top lose 1.2 million, it's like, fuck it, man, so what? And that's what they say. And here's why. Because you can grow marijuana. You can grow one marijuana plant in about 14 weeks. And off that plant, if you knew nothing, if you've never grown anything ever in your life, you're a total beginner. You get the right lights, the right gear, the right food. You can grow a marijuana plant in about 14 weeks. Some less. And for a total beginner, you can get about 10 ounces off it. And on the street, as the gangsters say, an ounce would go for, well look, you can buy a 50 bag for 3 grams and a 100 bag, you get 7 grams. So there's 28 grams in an ounce, so you get 4 ounces, you get 10 ounces on a plant, 400 an ounce, that's 4 grand. Now imagine you're a gangster or a criminal, you're a criminal, and you have 20 plants. And you know what you're doing, and you're getting 16 ounces off a plant. 16 ounces off a plant, man. One plant, 16 ounces at 400 a time. I'm crap at maths. What's that? 10 ounces, 10. That's 4 grand. That's about 8 grand, 6 grand, 7 grand off one plant. You have 10 of them. That's 70 grand every 14 weeks. Right? You're not stopping that. And I'll tell you why. It's not even 14 weeks, because what they do is they do a thing called perpetual grow. So just as these plants are nearly ready, say 4 or 5 weeks away from being finished and blooming and flowering, they already have the next ones coming along. So when they're harvested, these are nearly ready, and it's so on, and just keeps going. So it's not even every 14 weeks. In the grand scheme of things, it's maybe every 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And you're not stopping that. And all your self-righteousness and all your do-goodiness to telling me, a 51-year-old with a dodgy mind and an even dodgier body, that I can't smoke marijuana, is just, look, I'd say, how dare you? But maybe I shouldn't, because the reasons why you think that way is because it comes from a foundation of real knowledge and real truth and real facts, right? Well, let me tell you, back in the 1920s in America, there was prohibition. And before prohibition, everything was great. People were working, paying tax, the whole 9 yards. They banned alcohol because of people like you, by the way, because Bible bashers went out in the streets and they marched and they protested and they said, look, you're ruining our men of America. So we want alcohol banned, and they banned alcohol. Crime rocketed, murders rocketed, criminals got made. Al Capone. That's where Al Capone came from prohibition in Chicago. Made hundreds of millions he made. No one stopped him. They arrested plenty of people. And look, we know all this. How stupid can you be? Eamon Ryan. How stupid can you be? Told us in December just gone, that Ireland isn't ready to legalise marijuana. Now, I said it before. He obviously went to college, so he's obviously an educated man. And he's using the same hard facts that you are using out there, that tell a normal Joe Soap that you can't smoke marijuana. And it's all lies. And I tell you why. As I was saying, in the 1920s, after Prohibition, when Prohibition was finally ended at the end of the 1920s, they employed a fella in the Department of Prohibition called Harry Anslinger. And this guy was a scumbag. And he was a lowlife. And he was a lawyer. And he realised that when they legalised alcohol, he wasn't going to have much to do. And he might lose his job. They might close his department down because they don't need it anymore. And so he said, we need something else to scare the American people. And he started telling them that cannabis was bad. And it should be banned. And that's what he did. It's that easy. And he used to tell the American people story. And by the way, this was a fella that before he got the job, for years and years and years, you can go and check all this out. I'm going to keep saying that. Check all this out before you believe me. For years and years and years, he said on record that cannabis was fine. No problem. Never been a problem. It's perfectly healthy. It's great. Don't worry about it. And then he got this job and he realised what his problem was. So that's what he did. And he told the American people stories like, if you start smoking marijuana, you start getting delirium and all hyperactive and psycho and then, and this is where his mind was really at, as it is with most of these people that are in power, eh? Especially back then. I say he was smoking a couple of joints a day himself to think like this. He said if you keep smoking it, you'll start getting erotic dreams. Oh, we get him. Well, I tell you, Mr. Anslinger, what he didn't see was in the 21st century we'd have Pornhub. Okay, so all you do-gooders out there, if you want to stop me getting a hard on, banning marijuana is not going to do it, I'm afraid. Or the crime of women feeling good downstairs in the equator. I mean, heaven forbid a woman has an orgasm when she's having sex in Catholic Ireland. You can't be having it for some of you people, eh? So that's why he told people, and then he said you would finally go mad. Now listen, there are people out there that shouldn't smoke marijuana, whether you're 12 or 112. Some people shouldn't drink, some people shouldn't gamble. Some people, I know someone like that has a real problem with food. And they've had for years, and since they were kids, they've had problems with food. What, we're going to ban it all? We're going to ban food? Is that what we're going to do? That's what you would do. Because that's your solution, it seems. Even after all the proof that we have that prohibition doesn't work, you still hammer at that door. So here's the thing. This lowlife, Anslinger, he kept his job. Actually, do you know what else he did? Now, how he was a real convincer. He used to tell him American story. He told him a story that there was, and this actually really did happen, back in 1910, 1915, somewhere around there. Just some poor fella had really bad mental problems, and he got an axe and literally hacked his family to death, his ma, his dad's family to death. And this lowlife, that's what he is. He's a liar, because he's killed and hurt millions and hundreds of millions of people through all the generations, or all the decades. And he told the American people that story, that poor fella was on dope when he done it. And only that a reporter in the 70s or 60s, I think, looked back at the story. He was looking into drugs, I think. And he found out that he wasn't on any drugs. In fact, his mother went to the authorities a year before and said, look, my son is really dangerous, he has real problems, and I'm afraid he's going to hurt someone, or hurt himself, or hurt us. And she wanted him to be put in a madhouse. And he didn't do it. And a year later, we killed his family. And this lowlife blamed it on marijuana, on cannabis. It was called cannabis back then. And it wasn't really until the Mexicans brought it in and started smoking it as well. That was a big thing. It was an anti-Mexican thing, immigrant thing, that they were coming across the border to Texas and they were bringing marijuana. The name is a South American name, I think it actually is from Mexico, I think. Marijuana. But they were smoking it. And back then, you could have they had potions or medicines with cannabis in it. Listen, they had a thing called laudanum. There was opium in it. And they would give a spoonful to your baby. If it had toothache or it wasn't sleeping, they were giving babies fucking opium. And Mammy would take it as well, with 6 screaming kids around her. She'd, I'm chilling out, man. It's like, Mammy's now a glass of wine in the afternoon. These were taking spoonfuls of laudanum with opium in it. So it was around. People were using it until this piece of crap started scaring him about marijuana. So he had his job for 30 years. And in the 60s, Tricky Dicky, Richard Nixon, became president. And one of his senior advisors, not a Joe Soap, a senior advisor, he'd actually done an interview in the early 90s. I think it was 92, 93, 94, somewhere around there. And he admitted, straight out, this is on record, you can check all this out, it's on record. His name was Ehrlichman, Jonathan or John Ehrlichman, his name was. And he admitted, on record, that he said that everything that we told the American people in the 60s about drugs was a lie. And he knew it wasn't like misinformation or he got it wrong. It was an absolute barefaced lie. And I tell you, this is why he done it. And this is why he said he done it. He says the Vietnam War was going on at the time. And most of America was against it. Because they were sending kids, they were sending like 18-year-old kids to go to America, to go to Vietnam and die. Remember Muhammad Ali? And I'm going to use the N-word here, so if you don't like it, turn off and put your fingers in your ears. Muhammad Ali, when he was conscripted, that's why he couldn't fight for a couple of years, wasn't it? Because he said, ain't no yellow man ever called me a nigger. He said, and his point was, what am I going fighting yellow skinned men for white men when they never called me a nigger? Right? So that was the Vietnam War. Loads of people were against it. But the real people that were against it were hippies. Because, you know, peace and love, man. And they were smoking tons of marijuana. And at the start of the 60s, LSD started coming into play. But that wasn't really a big thing at the time. But it was marijuana. That was the demon. That was the devil in people's minds. And there was two things that this is him, what he said. He said, we couldn't make it illegal for people to badmouth the war. And it was mostly hippies. And peace and love and all that, like I said. And he said we couldn't make it illegal to be black. Okay? Couldn't make it illegal to be black. So what they did was, they started pushing the story that the hippies were pro-commie, because they were against the Vietnam War. So the hippies were pro-commie, anti-American, anti-soldier, and it was all because he smoked marijuana, and they were lazy bums. And for the blacks, to get the blacks, he said, and what we did was we equated being black with using heroin. And that's what he did. And he admitted that on record. He admitted that. And that's where the war on drugs, in Richard Nixon's presidency, that's where the term the war on drugs came along. Because it was a war in Vietnam that people didn't want. So he said, look, let's get our mind off this war, the illegal war, and let's start another, let's make up another illegal war. And we call it the war on drugs. So when you get on your knees and pray God and thank God that there's a war on drugs in this country and in the world, you should be ashamed of yourself. Now I know I keep saying these stupid fucking videos, but you really should be ashamed of yourself. If you didn't know any better and there was no way to find out, I'd say fine, you're just ignorant. Look, we're all ignorant in something. But you can find these things out. And here's what's even more dangerous and what's even more sinister is people like Eamon Ryan in December, just gone, he said that Ireland isn't ready to legalise marijuana. Now this is a guy, I don't know him, but I assume, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I assume that he drinks his drug. And like Bill Hicks said, he said, the people that tell you can't smoke your drug, drink that drug. So they're allowed to drink that dangerous, first of all, highly addictive. Alcohol, highly addictive. Very, very harmful. It's a violent drug, it makes you do violent things. How many women are getting a kicking tonight because their husband came home drunk? How many of those women would get a kicking if the husband came home after smoking a few joints in his friend's house? And it might be a flippant point to make, but it's a fucking valid point to make. It's just people out there that don't want to face facts like that, don't want me to make it. Doesn't suit your narrative. Like a lot of things in life, that with people that want to tell us. And listen, these are the same people, by the way, that tell me I can't do what I want with my body. But these are the same women and men who say it's my body and they can have an abortion and I want an abortion and I have a right to have an abortion because it's my body. Well, abortion, I'm not talking about abortion tonight, it's neither here nor there. But listen, you're killing a human being. You're stopping a life in your body. I smoke a joint. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm not saying it's great. And you're putting your body that shouldn't be there. Can't be great. But it's relatively benign compared to alcohol. And it's very benign compared to abortion. Now, I'm not anti-abortion, by the way. I'm just trying to make a point. Yeah? So, all you people out there that want to keep it illegal, now you know that the things that you were told, and for the reasons that you were told that marijuana, it's a gateway drug. I mean, that's like saying, you know what, I'm not racist because I have black friends. Right? It's about as bullshit as that. Okay? It's not a gateway drug. It's not a gateway drug. It's a medicine, first and foremost. And the sad thing, like I said, is the people like Eamon Ryan know all this. He should know all this. He's been to college. He's advisors that tell him, here's the facts about drugs, here's the facts about marijuana, this is why it's been made illegal. And I'm sure they're telling him, look, really, there's been literally decades and generations of studies. There's no harm in it whatsoever. Now, like I said, some people should be smoking it. And you definitely shouldn't be smoking it when you're a child. You should be smoking cigarettes when you're a child. You shouldn't be eating too much food when you're a child. You should be fat when you're a child. If you can help it, if it's just from eating food. But we're not banning it. So look, I'll leave you with this. There's a petition online. I'm going to put a link in this description here for anyone that sees this video and gets this far. And whether you smoke cigarettes or drink or take heroin or I don't care what you do, if you do none of those things, especially if you do none of those things, I ask you to sign that petition. Because all I've told you tonight is facts. It's absolute. I've not exaggerated. I've not put my own spin on things. I've told you facts, the names, the places, everything are facts. The reasons why. They're as ludicrous as they sound, as simple as they sound, as unbelievable as they sound, as trite as they sound. That's why you think marijuana is bad. You might have your own reasons as well. I don't know. But the core reasons why people think marijuana is bad and should be made illegal and kept illegal is wrong. And you've been lied to. And listen, just imagine, I'll finish with this. Just imagine in life if someone that you thought you could trust lied about something really important. And you went with that. You decided with them. And you found out 6 months later it was a really, really important thing. And it changed people's lives. And you found out 6 months later that they were lying. And not only were they lying, they knew they were lying. And it was lies that they made up. You'd feel sickened in your heart. If you were a decent person and an honest person, you'd feel sick in your heart and you say, what have I done? Why did I think that way? Because that fella's a scumbag, he lied. Or she lied to me. And that's what you're doing. And you're hurting people. You're hurting people. So, like I said, I'm going to put a link in the description below. And if anyone watches to this far, and you sign it especially if you don't smoke. You're going to save your kids misery, your grandkids misery, and all that come after that. You're going to save them misery. Don't believe the lies. If you want to keep it illegal, but then find out why you want to keep it legal, and don't be listening to politicians. Don't be listening to politicians. Okay. Goodbye, world.